Hi, this is a presentation and a step-by-step guide for reflection diarists participating in the Working Together programme. My name is Siân Hunter Dodsworth and I'm working with the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance and the Group for Education and Museums on the evaluation of the programme. This presentation is for those of you who have kindly agreed to participate as diarists over the next 16 months, documenting and reflecting on working together both as part of regional projects taking place across 6 partner museums and heritage organisations and any other programme related activity. So you might be a museum project lead, a senior manager or a member of staff working at CHOA or GEM. I'm going to be talking here about what it means to keep a reflection diary for evaluation purposes, ways of engaging with this particular format, and participant observer techniques that you can employ as part of the writing and reflection process. I'll also chat briefly about what ethics are important to consider when using a diary, as well as what will happen to your texts after you've completed them. I think it's important to mention that the thinking behind the reflection diary stems from a need for the working together evaluation to really capture what is happening and being learnt in situ. And this is especially important as it's not possible for me as the evaluator to be present for all activity. So in addition to the diaries, museum project leads will also be invited to participate in 2 online review and peer-to-peer learning sessions. And in addition, there will be a final workshop held at the end of the programme, bringing together various people involved in working together to think about what the evaluation findings are telling us about the current state of health and wellbeing work in the museums and heritage sector. So, what is your role as a diarist? I think it's helpful to see yourselves as the programme's eyes and ears, and through the diary format you'll be encouraged, like an ethnographer, to write about your participation in the programme and to act as participant observers of the behind-the-scenes processes. For each diary entry, we would like you to draw on a specific experience of a workshop, event or meeting, and using a combination of description and reflection, think about how this experience is illustrative of what you are learning about creative health work. It's up to you to decide which specific activity or event you choose to reflect on. Also, based on feedback from York, we've made some important changes to the co-evaluation model, and we are now asking that you create 8 diary entries in total. Again, it's up to you to decide how much you can write for each of those entries and how much time you can dedicate to the task. I say write, but your entries can also include drawing, sketching, mapping or diagramming, whatever form you feel most comfortable with to record and reflect. Remember, the diaries are also about giving yourself permission to pause and to step off the delivery treadmill, so you might want to think about whether you can find a space away from your desk that lends itself better to this task. If you're involved in pilot projects, your engagement in the programme will vary in intensity over the 16-month period. And you might want to take advantage of periods of increased activity to observe and reflect on several events related to project planning, delivery or post-delivery, for example. However, once that intense period of activity has come to an end, you might want to then choose to shift your focus to the training programme itself or other programme adjacent activity. All that we ask is that your diary entries are relevant to creative health work and your learning in relation to that, and that you do your best to submit an entry at the designated times. We're asking you to email these submissions, the submissions of the diary entries, direct to me. And for ease, we have decided to have submission dates coincide with training sessions, so Louise will gently remind you at the end of each training session to do so. Finally, you have been asked to sign a consent form that clarifies your authorship and role in the evaluation, but if you have any outstanding questions regarding this, then please let me know. Okay, so those are the practicalities out of the way. In terms of ethical considerations, our agreement to co-evaluate is with yourselves as diarists. And we just ask that you make sure that the organisers, project facilitators, artists, community partners, participants, anyone else involved in your chosen event, meeting or workshop knows who you are and knows that as part of your involvement in the evaluation, you'll be taking notes based on your observations and experiences. So just ask at the beginning for oral consent, and if anyone is unhappy with you taking notes, then I would advise you not to do so. Instead, choose to observe and reflect on another moment where you can get consent. And if you can reassure people that no names will be used in the evaluation and all individuals will be anonymised. Of course, if anyone has any further questions, please refer them to me, and please feel free to share my email address. So, just to reassure you, we are not expecting you to observe and note take everything you're experiencing or are involved in. The key to the reflection diary tool is that it's an exercise in being selective and thinking, well, what of all the things that have just happened or that I've seen and participated in, do I want to write some more detailed notes on? To help you keep focus when writing your diary entries, we have created 3 provocations. They are the following. How do you feel the project is going? How's it going with your partners? And how is the project playing out in your organisation? And you might want to think about your project team, senior manager, trustees, and others when thinking about that 3rd provocation. We suggest that you write these down somewhere in your diaries and that you use 1 or 2 to help guide you when making an entry. You might also want to think about who's participating in your project and in what ways, what's enabling your project to happen or proving to be an obstacle, and overall what you're learning from the process. So the participant observation diary writing of the kind that we're asking you to engage in is a long established method used by ethnographers and anthropologists when researching places, communities and situations. And there are loads of different ways of going about it. So these tips are pulled together from research guides and methods books, and basically please just use what is helpful for you. The key basically to being a participant observer is actively participating in your chosen event. You don't have to sit at the back and watch, and you don't have to try to be a fly on the wall. You are observing while participating, and certainly this is a skill, not always easy to do. And with each diary entry, we hope that you'll find that this becomes easier. Also, you can write from your own point of view. It's not about achieving some kind of objective position from which to analyse the experience. You are situated and embodied in the moment that you choose to write about, so please write from that perspective. Also, write whatever seems interesting and relevant to you within the focus that I talked about on the previous slide. And the advice too is to write down what you've observed, participated in or experienced as soon as possible after the event, whilst it's all fresh in your mind and you can remember as much detail as possible. Also, please include at the top of your entry the date and the time of the event, the location and any other factual details that you think might be helpful to include. You're aiming for a close and detailed report of events and interactions, focusing on the quality of the detail rather than trying to describe the whole event in a surface way. So the key is quality over quantity. Please also try to include your own emotions and reactions in the diary. How did the experience make you feel? What questions did it raise for you? You can put all of that in there, and it's also important to be conscious of other people's activities, reactions and concerns as closely as your own. And in your diary entry, you can interpret these using your own words. And we know that this is tricky because who really knows what anyone else is thinking? But what we're trying to do is have a greater sensitivity towards different people's experiences of a shared moment. So please bear in mind that this might not be the same for everyone. Other tips include describing the participants and their roles in the setting, who attended, was there anyone not present who on reflection should have been invited. It can also be helpful to describe the physical setting and the way that participants interact within that setting, and this could include reflections on who's talking to who or even a little diagram of the layout of the room. If you can record any quotes or anything you hear that you think is interesting, that's also great. You might want to have a notebook with you at the time in which to make a note of these keywords or quotes, and then you could use those to work up your diary entry later, but basically whatever you feel comfortable with. Also, the fact that you're telling people that you're going to be taking notes is likely to shift the dynamic in the space and in terms of the way that people interact with you. So you can write down whether that might be an impact as well, whether it made things awkward, or I don't know, did people seem more reluctant to speak to you or talk to you differently? You can note down any uncertainties or any other feelings that might have brought up for you and whether you think that might have had an impact. And finally, you might want to jot down anything that you've learned from the process of being a participant observer and any thoughts about how you would go about making your next diary entry. Okay, so finally I'd like to tell you what will be happening to your diary entries and the data that you'll be submitting. The diaries are one of various evaluation methods aimed at documenting different ways of working and thinking about health and wellbeing work in the museums and heritage sector. So we'll be using this information to try and generate a story about what's happening and being learnt in the Working Together programme. The qualitative data that you collect will be analysed using thematic analysis, which is a method that identifies patterns within the data as well as anomalies, and that usually centres on evaluation participants' own words and reflections. Obviously, the information gathered will be stored safely and securely, and I'll be feeding back as we go to those involved about what the data is showing us. Your own contributions as reflection diarists will also be anonymised, but of course if you'd rather be named, then that's also fine. You can also change your mind at any point about this, and the material will be shared with you before it's published as part of evaluation reports, and as per the consent forms you signed in February, you're entitled to withdraw your participation and any specific contributions you've made to the evaluation at any time. Okay. That's it for me for now. If you have any questions about the diaries now or any other stage in the programme, feel free to get in touch with me at s.hunterdodsworth@gmail.com. I'll see some of you on the 18th of April for a training session on tips and signposting for individual project evaluations. And in the meantime, I hope this has been helpful to get you started with your work as reflection diarists and as part of the wider Working Together evaluation. Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye.